from the some examples that has been given, and you said about coordination, that you did really the work as it should have been done. I understand also that in terms of Bright, Canada should do something vis-à-vis the UN. However, soon, hopefully, they will be doing something. So Bright project should be the perfect project for a satellite, a small satellite approach. And I think that your experience there could be great and could bring a lot to many people if there's any question. So thank you, Otto. Please, as we said, we're going this way, please. You present yourself and, okay good, yeah. Go on, yes, please.
Good afternoon, my name is Mike Safian. I'm representing Planet Labs. I'm the Director of Launch and Regulatory Affairs. And Planet Labs is a private US company. We're 100% venture capital backed. And what we do is we launch a constellation of small Earth imaging satellites. So we're launching 3U CubeSats, and this is really one of the first commercial companies that's making applications that can have serious economic and positive impact on the world. The idea is to image the entire Earth every day at a resolution of approximately 3 to 5 meters per pixel, and then democratize the access to that imagery. So I think this is really a great example of what are the types of things that we can do other than education and experience for universities and things like that. So it's a really solid example of a commercial application for small satellites. The company was founded in the end of 2010, and since then we've attempted the launch of 99 satellites. And so 71 have been successful to orbit, and all of those have been successful in orbit to various degrees. We actually had a handful of satellites being deployed from the space station just this weekend. So I'm getting text messages when the satellites get contacted for the first time, so that's a little bit exciting. Some of the challenges that we run into from an ITU perspective is that the way that the FCC works in the US is that they don't submit the ITU material until they've finished their licensing process. So for their process to take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, then the ITU gets the information that we submitted even in the beginning of the process. Then there's the whole time that the ITU has to process that. So very often we're getting coordination requests for satellite missions that have already ended. So for instance, Dove-1 was a 6-day mission because it was a very low orbit. That was the first satellite that we ever launched. And so that, again, that's a very easy explanation to that administration to say, well, we're pretty sure it's not going to cause any interference because it's now satellite dust in the atmosphere. And so despite the hard work that the ITU does, there's still some challenges internally on the domestic side from the US about getting that information to you in a timely manner. So there are some moves to get the ITU information out faster in parallel with the FCC process, but that's still coming. And so I think that the general trend is going towards the positive, but we still see some difficulties as of today. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yes, well, if I try to summarize, I will say that there is a problem with FCC domestically. No? Well, I did just try to summarize in my mind. It was a little unclear at some stage regarding the coordination of some of your system with the ITU approach. Well, as it has been mentioned, it's true that whenever there is a project, and I understand that from an administrative point of view regarding this ITU approach, and that's the reason in a way from that conference, that's the reason from the resolution from last conference about all of those non-GSOs and a CubeSat type of approach. Do we need to have an approach with a more simplified approach at the ITU level, for example, in order to provide the information, to facilitate those information, to speed up the process? That's one of the actions. But I think that's what's quite important also, and you mentioned it, and it's great, is the awareness of those companies that want to be in this business, not to forget that there is an international, well, I've said there is a national issue very often, and thanks to Tanya about all of those explanations about the national approach. There is a national issue regarding license, authorizations, whatever type, And there is also an international approach about those coordination. But I thank you for this presentation, and find quite interesting that we move from the amateurs bands to commercial type of system, and which certainly will be a big future for the small sat and Pico Nano and whatever satellite you have in project.
That's right.
Thank you for that presentation.
I have a presentation tomorrow where I'll go more into the details of the frequencies, but I'd just also like to finish to say that the FCC has been a big support for us, and our relationship has been a very collaborative one. So it's something that they're aware of and they're working towards to improve. And so just on record to say that we do love the FCC, and we hope our relationships continue to be friendly.
Well, I've no comment at all. Thank you. So let's go to UK. Please, Mario.
Thank you very much. Actually, for these companies, usually they love the FCC, but sometimes if they have an office in the UK, they come through the UK as well. But I'm just joking. No, it's not you. By the way, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mario Neri. I work for the Office of Communication, which is best known as Ofcom in the UK, which is the telecom regulator. I'm responsible for the international satellite frequency coordination for the UK. I want to thank the Bureau for organizing this event, because it is exactly what, in my opinion, we need for overcoming some of the ignorance, from a positive perspective of the term, for small satellites. Within our office, we deal with around 25 UK satellite stakeholders, usually big satellite stakeholders, let's say. But more and more often, we are seeing that there are a lot of requests for information, especially for these new systems, which definitely we want to support. Nevertheless, what I can see is that the questions that I'm asked now on a more regular basis are really, I wouldn't say silly, but obvious ones. And the answer is not always obvious. For example, a lot of companies are approaching us and asking whether there is a specific frequency allocation for small satellites, whatever the application it is. And of course, the answer is there is none, because in the ITU, in the radio regulations, you don't have a frequency allocation based on the type of the system. It is based, as you know, as you've seen this morning, is based on the type of service. So this is already a concept, a message that we would like, at least from the UK perspective, to use these events to push through. And what we need, if we want to be a regulator who wants to help this technology, is that people first do their homework, in the sense that they look at the rules as they currently are, and then we are happy to help in solving an issue. But for example, again, the first message that I wanted to make is that there is no frequency allocation for CubeSats, for example, or for small satellites. You need to decide what is your application, and then let's look together if there is a suitable frequency allocation, and from there we start. And also another thing that I would like to spend my 5 minutes on is to present and to explain how in the UK the management of satellite filings works. Actually, if you go onto the Ofcom website, if you are interested, the UK procedures for the management of satellite filings are very detailed. The document is, in my opinion, quite simple, quite understandable. Of course, if you are interested, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. One thing that, if any of your companies is planning to file through the UK, one thing that I want to emphasize is that as a regulator, as people, we need first to understand what you want to do. My invitation is actually, if you will ever approach Ofcom for this, please be honest and explain to us which is the application you're launching your satellites for. Because I've had some inquiries saying, yeah, why can we, for example, file for an amateur satellite allocation, but then we do something different? Well, I would say that is not really fair. In principle, we will check whether you are filing for a satellite system which is of a commercial concern, and in the end you are using an amateur band. That is, of course, not fair against the amateur guys. So, I mean, in my opinion, solutions are there. Probably we can do something better for speeding up the process. I understand the process sometimes takes some time, and fair enough. If I can conclude my intervention is approach a regulator, at least this is valid for the UK, very well in advance, very honestly, explain to us what you want to do, and maybe we can work together to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mario. I think it was quite interesting message. One thing that I just retained is that for me, it's kind of coming as a surprise, but it seems that the small sat community would have the same behavior that the big satellite community, saying that, well, I have a satellite at the GSO positions covering the entire world, and that in the reality, I'm just using one little beam in this country. However, I want to prevent anybody to come outside. Well, it's come as a surprise. I don't like those behavior, and I cannot believe that the small satellite is like that. But I thank you for saying that. And it's true that at the end of the day, I think it's a common resource, and we all talk about it. It's the orbit, it's the frequencies. It has been said also that, well, it's a common resource, and the beauty of that is that, okay, it's free. However, in order to get something of it, you have to use it. And on the other hand, it has been said also this morning during some presentation, if you're not using this, please let some other use it. So it's a kind of use it or lose it. So be at a certain level honest. But I'm sure that one of the things is that in order to be honest, you have also to have a clear framework, which could be at the national, international level. And I think that, well, whatever is going during those days and all of those discussions is really going to this sustainable approach for non-GSO satellite and particularly small sat. Okay, thank you, Mario. Please. Yes.
Okay, so I'm Mike Willis. I work for the UK Space Agency. We work quite closely with Ofcom. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Bureau for organising this event. I think it's very timely and a very good event. I'm just going to explain a little bit about what the difference between us is. Ofcom are the spectrum regulator in the UK. We are the space regulator, civil space regulator to be precise. So we deal with the Outer Space Act, which we were talking about, and the UK implemented the Outer Space Act in an act of 1986. We're currently looking at some regulatory reform in that area, but that's still going through the process. But if you want to launch or procure a launch or operate a space object or do any other activity in space from the UK, then you generally need a license under the Outer Space Act. That doesn't include things like operating through transponders, by the way. This is really about who's in control of the platform, who's moving the spacecraft about, who could potentially do damage or have an impact that would affect our liabilities. What Ofcom have not mentioned is the fact that they don't charge for their filing procedures. We have to charge because we have quite a lot of work to do in terms of cost recovery and due diligence in that costs us money. So we work on a cost recovery basis, and I think we charge currently £6,500 for a UK Outer Space Act license. But of course, not every satellite needs to pay that amount of money. If it's a research or educational spacecraft, come and speak to us, and it's quite possible that that fee would be waived or reduced. And the other thing is, of course, as we're filing, if you happen to be doing several identical satellites at each time, those can be in some way combined. So if you file a satellite frequency, you actually file a network. You don't file a particular satellite. The same could apply in terms of the Outer Space Act, although you'd need insurance for all of these spacecraft, of course. The other thing I was going to mention is what's been going on in 7B, and we're going to 7B, this is ITU Working Party 7B. We're going to be talking a bit about this later, But one of the things that we've been having some trouble with is defining, if you say, well, let's have a special license for nanosatellites and picosatellites,